Have you ever felt like some people only speak up when they see an opportunity to embarrass you? When someone wants to humiliate you, they don't start with open attacks. They start with subtle moves. A sarcastic comment, a backhanded compliment, a joke that sounds harmless but hits just a little too close. They don't want to fight you. They want to shake you, quietly, publicly, slowly. It's like a handshake with a hidden needle. It feels polite, looks respectful, but the moment you let your guard down, it cuts deep. That's how humiliation begins, not with an insult, but with charm. They smile, they praise, they pretend to support you, just long enough to wound you when you least expect it. Or it's like someone holding an umbrella over your head, just long enough to let the rain collect. And when it's full, they tilt it, slow, deliberate, and let it all fall on you. They act like they're shielding you, but they've only been waiting for the right moment to let it all hit. Because while they're trying to humiliate you, you have a choice. Let them get to you, or hold your head high and keep moving. And when you choose to rise, that's when they get uncomfortable. The moment you stop trying to prove yourself, they'll wish they had supported you instead of laughing. So how do you spot the first signs of humiliation and shut it down before it hits you? Stick around. What's next might change everything. Let's begin. Number 1. They make subtle jokes at your expense. Let's talk about one of the most common ways people try to humiliate you without appearing obvious. They make harmless jokes at your expense. It starts small. You're in a group, maybe with friends or co-workers, and someone cracks a joke that feels just a little too personal. Everyone laughs, but you feel it in your gut. Maybe they comment on the way you talk, how you dress, or something you shared with them in confidence. And when you react, they brush it off. Relax, I'm just kidding. Or, come on, don't be so sensitive. But here's the truth. That wasn't a joke. It was a power play. Because people who want to humiliate you rarely do it directly. They wrap their insults in sarcasm. They dress their bitterness in humor. And while everyone else might laugh along, deep down you know the difference between light-hearted teasing and targeted humiliation. These jokes aren't meant to entertain. They're meant to diminish you. It's a strategy. If they can get you to question yourself in public, even for a moment, they've shifted the power. Here's what's really happening. Instead of confronting their own insecurity, they use mockery to feel in control. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Seneca said it best. Mockery is the weapon of the weak, dressed in laughter to hide their intent. In other words, people who feel small inside try to make others feel smaller. They don't build themselves up, they tear others down, and they use humor to disguise it, so they don't have to take responsibility for the damage they cause. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Megan, had a colleague named Brian. In meetings, Brian would always slip in comments like, "Well, Megan's always full of ideas. Let's hope one of them actually works this time." Everyone would chuckle, and Megan would fake a smile, but inside she was shrinking. It wasn't playful, it was public shaming. And the more she stayed silent, the more it continued. Until one day, she calmly responded, "Brian, I think we're here to discuss ideas, not people. Let's stay focused." The room went quiet. And for the first time, Brian didn't have a joke to hide behind. So how do you deal with someone like this? First, call it for what it is. If it makes you uncomfortable, it's not funny. Second, stay calm and firm. Don't give them the reaction they're fishing for. And finally, protect your space. Someone who constantly jokes at your expense isn't harmless. They're revealing exactly how they feel. At the end of the day, real strength isn't found in mocking others. It's found in rising above it. Let them laugh. Just make sure you're the one walking out with your dignity intact. Number 2, they challenge you in front of others. Let's talk about one of the clearest signs that someone is trying to humiliate you. They wait until there's an audience before questioning you. Maybe it's in a meeting, a group conversation, or even a casual hangout. They don't bring up concerns privately. Instead, they wait for a moment when others are watching. Then suddenly, they challenge your decisions, your ideas, or even your intelligence, not to seek clarity, but to embarrass you. Here's the truth. When someone targets you in front of others, they're not interested in discussion. They're interested in domination. It's a power move, carefully timed. They want to put you on the spot, catch you off guard, and make you stumble, because your discomfort becomes their performance. It's not about what's being questioned. It's about who gets to appear smarter or stronger in the moment. And if you let it can shake your confidence. But this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Epictetus said, "He who seeks attention through humiliation exposes his own insecurity." And that's exactly what's happening. Someone who constantly needs to challenge others in public isn't confident. They're insecure. They use confrontation to hide their self-doubt. They want others to see them as powerful because deep down, they don't feel that way at all. So instead of building themselves up, they tear others down, loudly and publicly. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Andrew, was leading a team meeting at work. He had spent hours preparing a proposal. Just as he started presenting, a co-worker named Ben interrupted with a snide, "Are you sure that's the best idea? It doesn't seem fully thought through." The room went quiet. Ben could have asked that question in private, but he didn't. He chose the spotlight because the goal wasn't collaboration, it was humiliation. Andrew kept his composure, calmly responded, and finished his presentation. Later, several co-workers came up to say they saw right through Ben's behavior. What looked like a public win was actually a personal loss for Ben. So how do you respond when someone challenges you in front of others? First, stay calm. That's your greatest power. Don't get emotional or defensive. That's exactly what they want. Second, speak with clarity and control. If their challenge is legitimate, address it. If it's a setup, deflect it with confidence. And finally, don't stoop to their level. Public humiliation is a loud cry for validation. Don't give them the satisfaction. At the end of the day, someone who challenges you in front of others isn't trying to help. They're trying to harm. But your response? That's where your strength is revealed. Let them seek attention. You stay focused on your purpose, and that's a battle they'll never win. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 3, they highlight your flaws publicly. Let's talk about one of the most calculated forms of humiliation, when someone chooses to highlight your flaws in front of others. Whether it's your appearance, your past mistakes, or a personal insecurity you once shared with them, they find a way to bring it up, loudly, and at exactly the wrong moment. They'll laugh while saying it, pretend it's harmless, maybe even wrap it in a friendly tone. But make no mistake, this is intentional. Here's the truth. People who publicly point out your flaws aren't being honest. They're being cruel, and they're doing it for a reason. When someone exposes your vulnerabilities in front of others, it's not about truth. It's about control. They want the room to laugh. They want eyes to shift away from them and land on you, because deep down, they feel small. And if they can make you feel smaller, even for a moment, they feel powerful. This is where Stoic wisdom cuts through the noise. Marcus Aurelius once said, "What is shameful is not the flaw, but the one who uses it to wound. We all have imperfections. We all carry mistakes. But someone who weaponizes those moments doesn't deserve your shame. They deserve your silence, your dignity, your refusal to play their game, because calling out someone's flaws says far more about the speaker than the one being spoken about. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Rachel, was out with a group of friends when someone in the circle made a loud joke about her past relationship struggles. It was something Rachel had confided in privately, something painful. But this so-called friend turned it into a punchline. The group laughed awkwardly. Rachel froze. And in that moment, she realized, this wasn't friendship. This was humiliation dressed in humor. But instead of snapping back or shrinking down, Rachel calmly said, "If you need to use my pain for attention, that says more about you than me." The laughter died. The tone shifted. And that friend never joked like that again. So, how do you deal with someone who highlights your flaws publicly? First, don't let them define you. A mistake, a flaw, a bad moment, none of those erase your worth. Second, don't react with shame. React with strength. You can choose grace without giving them power. And third, remember that silence is powerful. Sometimes the best way to expose someone's cruelty is to let their words hang in the air, ugly and alone. At the end of the day, we all have flaws, but no one has the right to use them against you. So when someone tries to shrink you in public, stand taller. Let their words reflect who they are, while you continue to reflect strength. Number 4, they pretend to offer help while undermining you. Let's talk about one of the most subtle forms of humiliation, when someone offers you help, but their real goal is to undermine you. It sounds like advice. It looks like support. But if you listen closely, the tone is condescending. It's not about guiding you. It's about positioning themselves above you. They don't ask if you want help. They assume you need it. They don't correct you gently. They use your mistake as an opportunity to showcase their own superiority. Here's the truth. People who offer help with an air of arrogance aren't trying to support you. They're trying to control how others perceive you. They use correction to imply they're smarter, more capable, or more experienced. And if you're not careful, you'll start internalizing it. You'll begin to second-guess yourself, hesitate when you speak, or feel smaller in their presence. But it's not you, it's them. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Epictetus said, "True guidance uplifts. False guidance disguises pride as wisdom." Real help doesn't make you feel less, it makes you feel seen, capable, and supported. When someone offers feedback with kindness, it builds you. When they offer it with pride, it tears you down. And that's the difference between a guide and a competitor, between someone who wants you to rise and someone who needs you to stay beneath them. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Chris, was starting a new job. He was eager to learn, made a few small mistakes in his first week, nothing major. But there was this one colleague, Evan, who would loudly correct him in front of others. Every time Chris asked a question, Evan would respond with, "You didn't know that?" followed by a long-winded explanation that made Chris feel like a child in a classroom. Others noticed it too. It wasn't help, it was performance. Evan didn't want Chris to improve. He wanted everyone to see who was in control. Eventually, Chris stopped reacting emotionally. Instead of defending himself, he started calmly saying, "Thanks, I've got it now." Short, direct, unshaken. Over time, the power dynamic shifted. Evan lost the stage. Chris kept growing, and it became clear who the real leader in the room was. So how do you handle someone who offers help that belittles? First, don't absorb their tone, filter their words. If the advice is useful, take it and move on. If it's coated in condescension, let it roll off. Second, assert your competence. You don't need to argue, just stay calm and firm. And third, recognize the motive. If their help doesn't empower you, it was never meant to. At the end of the day, real guidance lifts you higher. Anything less is just ego in disguise. Let them posture while you quietly grow. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a thank God and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 5. They ask embarrassing questions publicly. Let's talk about a humiliation tactic that's often disguised as just asking a question. It happens when someone deliberately asks you something in front of others, not to seek an honest answer, but to put you on the spot. The question might sound innocent to everyone else, but you can feel what's underneath it. It's not curiosity, it's performance. It's carefully timed to make you look unprepared, uncertain, or even foolish in front of an audience. Here's the truth. When someone asks a loaded question in public, their goal isn't clarity, it's control. They already know the answer, or worse, they know you don't. They choose their moment not based on what needs to be asked, but based on who's watching. It's less about the topic and more about the effect, making you hesitate, making you uncomfortable, making others doubt your competence. And when you feel the need to defend yourself, to scramble for the right response, they've already won half the battle, because now the attention isn't on the question, it's on your discomfort. This is where Stoic wisdom reveals the game for what it is. Marcus Aurelius said, "He who weaponizes curiosity lacks the courage to confront truth directly." That kind of question isn't strength. It's cowardice wearing the mask of intelligence. When someone uses a question to humiliate rather than to learn, they're not brave, they're manipulative. Real strength lies in asking to understand, not asking to shame. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Claire, was presenting at a team briefing. Right after her update, a colleague raised his hand and asked, "Did you double-check that data? Because last quarter you missed a detail, remember?" It wasn't a helpful question. It wasn't even relevant to the current topic. It was a calculated jab designed to bring up her past mistake and plant doubt in the room. Claire took a breath, smiled calmly, and responded, "Yes, I double-checked it this time, just like I do now for everything, because I learn quickly." She didn't flinch. And just like that, the moment lost its sting. So how do you deal with someone who asks you embarrassing questions in public? First, pause. You don't owe anyone a rushed answer. Take your time and respond from composure. Second, don't play defense. Stand in your truth. If the question is meant to humiliate, call it what it is, gently but firmly. And third, remember that your calm is your power. At the end of the day, questions are meant to clarify, not to condemn. If someone uses them to make you shrink, rise instead. Let them expose their insecurity while you remain rooted in quiet strength. Because dignity doesn't shout, it simply holds its ground. Number 6. They isolate you with passive aggression. Let's talk about one of the most subtle but deeply damaging ways people try to humiliate you. They isolate you through passive aggression. It doesn't come through loud insults or public arguments. It comes through silence. They ignore your ideas in meetings. They overlook your presence in group conversations. You speak, and they act like they didn't hear you. You contribute, but they shift the credit elsewhere. Slowly, quietly, they chip away at your confidence, not with confrontation, but with exclusion. Here's the truth. Ignoring someone on purpose is one of the most calculated ways to humiliate them, because being excluded makes you question yourself. You start wondering, did I say something wrong? Or, am I not good enough to be heard? But this tactic has little to do with your value, and everything to do with their need for control. By making you feel invisible, they place themselves above you. It's not about the conversation, it's about the message. You don't matter here. But their silence speaks volumes, not about you, but about their own insecurity. This is where Stoic wisdom lights the way. Epictetus said, "To be unseen is not the same as being unworthy. Their blindness is not your burden." Just because someone refuses to acknowledge your worth doesn't mean it disappears. Their failure to see your value doesn't make it any less real. It only exposes their smallness, not your insignificance. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Jordan, was part of a creative team where ideas were tossed around freely. But every time Jordan shared a suggestion, the room went quiet. No feedback, no eye contact, just silence. Then, minutes later, someone else would rephrase his idea, and suddenly it was brilliant. This happened over and over until Jordan started to doubt himself. But one day, during a project review, the client praised a campaign that had come from one of Jordan's original ideas. The team knew it, but no one had acknowledged it. Jordan didn't get angry. He didn't demand attention. He just quietly began documenting his contributions and presenting them directly. Over time, the silence around him faded, not because they suddenly respected him, but because he stopped needing their recognition to believe in himself. So, how do you handle passive aggression meant to isolate you? First, see it for what it is, a silent attempt to control your confidence. Second, don't shrink in response. Stay consistent, stay professional, and let your work speak. And third, detach your worth from their recognition. You were never invisible. You were simply surrounded by people unwilling to see. At the end of the day, being ignored is painful, but being rooted in self-worth is powerful. Their blindness is not your burden. Let them look past you while you rise past them. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 7. They laugh when you're vulnerable. Let's talk about one of the most hurtful ways someone can try to humiliate you. They laugh when you're vulnerable. It could be a small mistake, an honest misstep, or a rare moment when you open up. And instead of offering support, they smirk, they chuckle, or worse, they make sure others laugh too. They don't reach out to lift you. They use your moment of weakness as entertainment. Here's the truth. When someone laughs at your vulnerability, it's not about you. It's about their lack of empathy. Vulnerability is strength. It takes courage to admit a mistake, to show emotion, or to speak from the heart. But to someone insecure, someone who needs power over others, your courage makes them uncomfortable. And their way of dealing with that discomfort? Humiliation. They mock what they don't have the strength to show themselves. Their laughter isn't light-hearted, it's a shield. It's how they protect their own fears by making you feel exposed. This is where Stoic wisdom draws a clear line. Seneca said, "The fall of another should call forth compassion, not cruelty." Real character shows itself not in how someone reacts to your success, but in how they treat you when you're vulnerable. Do they step closer, or do they step on you? Do they lift you, or do they laugh at you? The answer reveals everything about who they are. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Naomi, was giving a short talk at an internal company event. Mid-sentence, she lost her place and stumbled over her words. It lasted only a few seconds, but a group at the back started laughing. One of them mimicked her softly under their breath. Naomi caught it, and so did the rest of the room. For a second, she felt the urge to shrink, to apologize. But then she took a breath and said, "Funny how we laugh at people for being human, but I'll take that over pretending to be perfect any day." The room clapped. The laughter stopped. So how do you respond when someone mocks you at your most vulnerable? First, don't absorb their cruelty. You made a mistake. You opened up. That's not weakness, it's bravery. Second, stand in your truth. You don't need to fight back, but you also don't need to hide. And third, remember that those who laugh are revealing more about themselves than about you. At the end of the day, it's easy to laugh at someone's fall. It takes strength to offer a hand. So when you find yourself exposed, don't let their ridicule define you. Let your resilience do the talking, because their cruelty might be loud, but your dignity is louder. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply.